Disabled by Wilfred Owen is another one of his very sort of legendary anti-war poems, which he wrote, with the express sort of purpose of showing people the reality of war and especially the reality of those who go to war and then return home and the poor treatment that they receive by those who they have risked everything for and also by those who they have given up literal pieces of their body for, and often their lives for. So disabled covers the day in the life, or even not even the day, but the an hour or a sort of moment capturing the life of a soldier who has gone to war and he's returned to his city, his home place, and the way that he's treated and the way that he's essentially ignored by the people who live there, and his reflection on how life used to be for him and how life is now. So the poem basically covers again Owen's strong anti-war message and really you could say his actual, you know, uh, concern for not only just soldiers but for the young, which is obviously extremely admirable. Okay, so the poem begins by opening with the idea that the soldier, so this is a soldier, it says, he sat in a wheeled chair waiting for dark and shivered in his ghastly suit of grey. If you notice again, there's no name given to this individual because, again, the point is that it could be any one of the readers and it could be any one of us who could be in this position, God forbid, if we go to war. That's his idea. That's the message. And also, the message of the poem is that many people have gone to war, many people have now become disabled, who have lost their lives, and these people, many of them are essentially nameless, not only because it's hard to identify who has died or not, especially in a war like World War One when so many millions died, but moreover that many people don't even care about these soldiers, that even if you could know their names, then most people or many people who they died for would not even care to think about their names and so on. What he's illustrating, remember, is that this is how he feels after actually having gone to war himself. He actually died on the field. Remember that too, before you judge him and think he's being too harsh. This is a man who wrote his poetry from the trenches and gave his life, okay, doing the thing that he is talking about. So he's not just talking like excuse me. He's not just talking like some kind of, you know, pseudo intellectual or something, or talking from the way in the back. He's talking from the front line, essentially. He's telling the story of himself and the story of his friends, his comrades, the people, his brothers in arms, his probably family members, his friends, people who he's close to, who have died and who this has happened to. So here you have the soldier. He sits in his wheelchair waiting for dark, which is an interesting thing to be waiting for. You can say, you can say right from the outset that the soldier not only is he disabled, which we're gonna see in a minute, his exact disability, but he has become completely sort of emotionally wrecked also, in that he's waiting for dark, he's waiting for the night to come, he's waiting essentially for the end to come. Darkness is and nighttime is the end of the day, and the soldier has become so destroyed by his experiences emotionally and physically and socially, psychologically, by how he's being treated, how he's being neglected by everyone, that he is essentially just waiting for the end to come. He's waiting to die, essentially, because his life is so hard that, in a sense, he may have wished that he died during the war. And obviously, his main wish is that he never signed up for the war at all in the first place. But he was tricked into doing so from the speaker's perspective, at least, or the writer's perspective. The man was tricked into signing up. Um, and it was a decision which wrecked him forever, messed up his life forever. Okay, shivered in his ghastly suit of grey, legless, sewn short elbow. So you can see that the even the clothes he's wearing are not worthy of the man who is wearing them. In other words, the clothes themselves are not nice clothes. Okay, they're not like expensive clothes. They're not, and this is an unfortunate thing, which is that many soldiers, many veterans, they're not They don't come back with any sort of wealth, or they don't end up the most well off in society, even though if you were to judge society by who does the most to contribute to it, who does the most to keep it alive, keep it safe, or if you were to judge the members of the society by who does the most for that society and keeping that society alive, keeping it existing, you would have to put the soldiers at the top, right? You would have to put the soldiers at the top, which is why in our past, our ancestors used to literally worship the warrior class. And the warriors were worshipped like mighty Achilles. He was worshipped, and Hercules and many of the other warriors were worshipped uh, as, and then even if they weren't worshipped, taken as gods or demigods, then they were taken as elites. In order to be in order to be classified and to be qualified for an elite position of power, you had to demonstrate your masculinity, your sacrifice, your honor, your virtue, even. Your character was measured by, have you been on the battlefield and have you shed your own blood in protection of our citizenship and our society? Have you put yourself on the front line in front of swords and knives and the enemy in order to protect the things which you now get to have a say over? Obviously, things have changed now with, excuse me, the creation of the political class, which doesn't fight its own wars. Um, in any case, you can see that things have inverted a lot in that today we don't really honor the warriors. We don't really hold warriors in high esteem as we should, because people forget, because in the modern age with all of our technology and everything, people seem to forget that war is still a reality and that enemies do exist who would like to kill you if they could. It's just that they can't. And the reason they can't, okay, is because there's a strong military which protects you from being harmed. Um, Now, obviously, people obviously rightly criticize the military and the army and all that due to the expansion of like self-serving policies, self-serving foreign policy, attacking other countries to get their resources and all that, which is fine. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that there are people who genuinely have died and are going to die so that you are protected, essentially, and so that I am protected, which is something that we should think about. Anyway, so this man here, he's legless, sewn short at the elbow. So what's happened to him is his legs have been completely cut off by a bomb or something, and one of his arms, at least one of his arms, it's hard to see if it's one or if it's two. He's lost an arm and he's lost his legs, both of them. So now he is completely restricted to an existence on a chair and an existence which he is completely dependent on other people to help him. It's like in it's like in Morgan's in the snack bar, except only more extreme in that at least in the snack bar, though the man is blind, he can at least walk. This man cannot walk. He can't even. It's possible he can't even feed himself. Okay, he can't do anything. He's completely dependent on others. And if you notice, there's no one with him right now. And the fact is that he's alone in the park or alone in some place. Okay, we can assume the park is what he's talking about. Uh, and it's coming to nighttime, so he's completely alone, isolated, which means no one really cares about him. He's disabled, and you have to imagine, picture yourself in the situation. Imagine you have literally given up your limbs. You've literally lost your limbs. Okay. You've made yourself disabled. And then you come back. You almost died. You're traumatized by having to kill other people and seeing your friends get killed. And then when you come back, the people in the society don't even pay attention to you. They don't even talk to you. They don't even say thank you to you. Can you imagine what that would do to you psychologically? That's the situation of this man. And situation, unfortunately, of many soldiers when they return home um, to this day, which is why a lot of them become addicted to alcohol and other drugs in order to try and cope with all of that. Okay, anyway, through the park, the voices of boys rang, saddening like a hymn. Voices of play and pleasure after day till gathering sleep had mothered them from him. So he is now sitting in the park, watching and listening to people his age, young men his age, who are having the time of their life, enjoying themselves and having fun. And his condition is even worse because now he's imagining that this should be him. This should be him. This used to be him. Only 12 months before this poem takes place, he was one of these boys. Okay, who had his whole life ahead of him. We're also told that he lies about his age, so we can assume that he's young. Okay, he's probably 16 or something like that, 17, something like that. He was too young to sign up for the military. But he lied about his age, and they knew he lied about his age, and yet they still took him. And so you can see that this was a young man who had everything ahead of him, and now he has the nothing ahead of him. Everything has been taken from him, and he now has to watch other people as they live the life that he was living and should be living himself. About this time, town used to swing so gay. This is the old meaning of gay, meaning happy, joyful, and all that. So basically, he's saying is that about this time, when he was walking around, there was a lot of things going on. The town, the city was full of life and excitement, adventure that he was taking part in. Glow lamps budded in the light blue trees. Girls glanced lovelier as the air grew dim. So the girls used to like him a lot because he was a handsome guy, and he's now remembering what that felt like. Okay, to be appreciated by women, to be liked by women, to be desired by women. In old times, before he threw away his knees. Now he will never feel again how slim girls' waists are or how warm their hands are. All of them touch him like some queer disease. So basically, what's happened now is because he's become disabled, now girls don't even look at him except to look at him and as some kind of monster, some kind of disease, something to be avoided, something to be pushed away, something strange, like some kind of thing they want to run away from and not be near at all. So, if you think about think about the most common crises that, you know, young boys or young men are going through today. You think about isolation or loneliness, not having any friends, not having anyone to talk to. You think about the idea of not having a girlfriend, not having any interest from women. No, girls don't like them, girls don't talk to them. And you think about the amount of depression and the amount of sadness that these people feel, that it pushes them to extreme actions, okay, like mass shootings and things like that. And now imagine that this man is feeling all of those things on top of also now being disabled when he wasn't born disabled. And on top of that, he is now also feeling the sting of betrayal in that the people who he almost died for, who he's become disabled for, now now look at him as if he's something ugly. So you can imagine the depth of pain the man is feeling is um it's impossible really to describe, right? It's impossible to describe. There was an artist silly for his face, for it was younger than his youth last year. Now he is old, his back will never brace, he's lost his color. So again, this is only this story takes place only 12 months after uh, he originally signed up. So 12 months before this moment, he was just a normal young man. Again, he's probably a teenager, and he's probably a young teenager because he had to lie about his age, which you'll see in a second. And when he was young, just 12 months ago, his face was extremely handsome, and it was so handsome that artists were chasing him to try and, make pictures of it, basically. But now his whole face has become aged. His face has become aged due to the amount of trauma and stress and pain he's experienced. And also, we can imagine due to the experience and exposure to different chemical weapons and exposure to, fragments of bullets and grenades and um, shelling, bombing, and all of the different tragedies of war. He's experienced all of them, and they've made him now aged, and his back is also damaged in such a way that he can't stand up. Obviously, he has no legs, but he can't even sit up straight. So everything, every sense, every source of pride, every source of self-confidence, self-esteem, of any sort of thing which would make him value his life, everything has been taken away from him. Everything has been destroyed, essentially. His entire life, his entire psychological structure, his entire emotional system, his entire social structure, everything has been destroyed by his experience in war. 12 months of war have destroyed everything for him. Poured it down shallows till the veins ran dry, and half his lifetime elapsed into the hot race. A leap of purple spurted from his thigh. So, describing obviously a moment where either he got shot or he got stabbed or something in his leg, and the blood was pouring out like his life and his future poured out. Yes, like a metaphor. One time he liked the blood smear down his leg after the matches carried shoulder high, so he was a competitive individual who, liked to compete hard when he was playing football. When he drank a peg, meaning of alcohol, he thought he'd better join. He thought he'd better join. So at this point, the speaker begins to describe how the man made the young man, teenager, the boy made his decision. How did he make his decision to sign up for the military? First, he was slightly intoxicated. He got drunk a little bit. So he was under the influence of alcohol. So he wasn't even in his right mind when he made the decision. And then he joined, and this is how you know that he was young. How you know that he was young and essentially vulnerable. He joined because someone told him he'd look good in the clothes, the military uniform. He was excited about the way that he'd look. And he joined because he had a girlfriend who he thought she would like him, or he wanted to impress her, or there was a girl that he liked. And it says his Meg, so I guess it's his girlfriend. Um, or someone he was talking to. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, he did it to impress a girl. He did it to because he thought he'd look cool in the uniform, and because he thought he would impress a girl with it. Which shows you again just how young he was. Okay, it shows you how young he was, and shows you that he wasn't really thinking. Yeah, he was just he wasn't really thinking at all. He's more just imagining it like some kind of game, some kind of game. And really, this is tragic because you can't say it's his fault because he's too young to understand what he's doing yet. That's the point. You can't say that it's his own fault or he was stupid for wanting to join up because he thought he'd look cool in a uniform. If you're 13, 14, 15, even 16, you don't understand anything. Does that make sense? You don't understand anything. Your concept of the world is nothing. And so for you, the idea that you could look cool in a uniform could be justification enough, like the writer is sort of laying out here, to make one of the biggest mistakes in your life, right? And it's similar to teenagers, for example, that join gangs or that get involved in different kind of crime. One of the primary motivations that they have, for many of them, is that they see older people who dress in a suit or dress, in certain clothes that look cool. They have a girl with them, they're around women. Women seem to like them, they seem to have money, and this is enough to motivate a young person to do something as egregious, as terrible as even like shooting someone, killing someone, stabbing someone, or selling drugs to someone, robbing someone, being involved in gang violence to where the consequences are that they end up with 15, 20 years in prison. They throw away their entire life, their future, because of the draw of image. So don't just think it's something like simple that he's an idiot for doing this. Essentially, any young teenager is unable to rationally think things out, which is why we have protections. Excuse me. The reason we have protections on the activities of teenagers, why we have protections and limits on what young teenagers are allowed to do, is because we recognize that their emotional systems override and rule their rational systems. Okay, their rational systems, their ability to think things out logically, is many times overridden by their emotional systems. How they feel about something, are they angry, are they excited, and so on, like that. Yeah, and that's why we know that. That's why we limit the things that teenagers can do. Okay, and what happened here was they knew that he was too young to sign up, but they still signed him up anyway. Okay, so they weren't really thinking about him as an individual. They were just thinking about the overall war effort, the overall goal, and so he was a sacrificial lamb to the overall war effort. That's the point the writer's trying to make. They didn't really care about him, just like the people who don't who when he came back to his own town, how they didn't care about him. The people who sent him out to fight, they didn't care about him. So he goes on to say Germans he scarcely thought of, so he didn't even know who the enemy was. He didn't know anything about Germany. How could he? He's too young. All their guilt. He didn't he didn't consider going into war. You know, in the old days, like I said before, in the old days, the politicians and the warriors were essentially the same. They were the same a lot of times. In other words, in tribal society, and even after that, like in many of our ancient societies, the warrior class and the elite power class, the ones who make the laws, discuss the laws, debate them, they were the same people. They were the same people. And that is because the soldiers and the politicians, the soldiers who were politicians, they being older, yes, could think about these questions in a deeper way. Yes. Should we go to war with these other people? We understand what war is because we've experienced it. And also, who is actually guilty? You can actually, when you get older, you can think about things in a deeper philosophical way. You can think about guilt, you know, like the guilt. He's saying the guilt. The Germans, he didn't understand it. Austrians didn't move him. He didn't know anything about Austria, anything about the politics of the world because he's too young. In the past, with these people being older, you would be you would understand things. You could make a educated judgment about things. Does it make sense? As opposed to just taking action and then being damaged by it forever, in the way that this man was essentially. Okay, okay. Anyway, no fears of fear came yet, and no fears of fear came yet. Again, he's so young that he has no concept of fear yet. He has no understanding of fear yet as an actual reality. He might feel fear here and there, but he has no understanding of what fear actually is, how it works, why you have it, and so on. He thought of jeweled hilts for daggers and plaid socks, so he's just again thinking about how he's gonna look. He's gonna look so good, smart salutes, people are gonna respect him. Care of arms and leave, holidays, he's gonna make money, pay arrears, esprit de corps, the feeling of being with your boys, going on missions, hence for young recruits. Soon he was drafted out with drums and cheers. So essentially, he was made to feel like he's gonna go and do some great thing, and when he comes back, he's gonna be a hero. Basically, that was the idea, which didn't happen. Some cheered him home, but not as crowds cheer goal. Only a solemn man who brought him fruits thanked him and then inquired about his soul. So when he returned home, some people, some people said, "Welcome home" or something. I don't know, but it was it was nowhere near the enthusiasm and the number of people who would attend, for example, a football match, which is interesting. So people in his village and his town, and obviously this is spread out now to the writer's criticism of, say, the country in general or war in general. This would apply, I guess, across the board to all kind of or most countries. That people are more excited about football and showing their love for footballers than they are for the people who give their lives on their behalf. He's basically showing like this is a terrible situation. It's a terrible situation. That's like kind of the idea. Okay. Now he will spend a few sick years in institutes. Okay, so he has no freedom now. All of his freedom's gone, which is kind of ironic because he was fighting for freedom, but now all of his freedom is gone. Now, so essentially, he's been punished for doing something good, which is a terrible situation to be in. Psychologically destructive. Devastating. He will spend a few sick years in institutes and do what things the rules consider wise. He has no personal freedom anymore. He can't do anything on his own. He's now being ruled by other people, even though he fought for freedom. Irony, terrible irony. And take whatever pity they may dole. Again, he's at the. Not only just is it that people are going to be good to him because he deserves it, but they're going to treat him in a way of like pity, doing something because they feel sorry for him, not because they admire him. It's a difference. Like you pity a dog, you pity like a sick child, but you admire someone who is great. You admire someone who is superior in virtue and character and action. So he's not getting admiration like he deserves. He's getting pity. He's getting pity. Pity is given to those who are in some way inferior to you. But what he should be getting is admiration. In other words, people should be carrying him on their shoulders and saying, "Thank you so much for your sacrifice." Anyway, tonight he noticed how the woman's eyes passed from him to the strong men that were whole. So again, the women are ignoring him, and it's interesting that he says the strong men. Um, so again, another criticism societally that the strong man is seen as the one who is physically strong, maybe muscular or something, whereas the actual strong man, the one who has sacrificed, who has given something on behalf of the greater good of society, he's sort of overlooked. And this is the case, you can say, with many kind of positions in society which are either looked down on or overlooked or criticized, like the police or the fire service or like emergency services or those critical workers, like critical infrastructure workers, like for example, the people who take out your bins, who change your bins, the people who fix the roads and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, people who exist but are invisible, usually speaking. Um, it's sort of like a, a criticism of that kind of thing too. Okay, anyway, how cold and late it is. This is the man speaking. Why don't they come? Or the man, how he feels essentially. Why don't they come and put him into bed? Why don't they come? So even the people who have been charged with looking after him, even the people who have been charged with looking after him are sort of failing in their responsibility to him. They've forgotten about him. They've left him there in the cold, dark night, and he's now waiting for them to take him and let him at least go to sleep, give him some rest. And again, you can see he's completely dependent on them. He can't just, stand up and go home, go to bed himself. He needs to wait for someone else to take him and put him in his bed. He has been completely emasculated, completely destroyed. His life has been devastated, essentially. It's again another sort of clear anti-war poem showing the reality of what happens after a soldier goes to war, taking away any kind of um, shimmer or shine fantasy of uh, you know people who would explain that once you're a soldier then you're going to be treated like a hero and all that stuff. The writer doesn't allow that at all. He wants people to feel what it's like to be a soldier and to then maybe think about maybe we shouldn't be going and doing these wars, signing up for them and all that stuff. Okay, very powerful poem and powerful message.